Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm just going to give it a little minute to kind of let people filter in because I know it takes a second, but we'll get started here in a minute. Okay, it looks like our numbers have leveled out, so we will get started. So thank you again for joining us. I want to start by acknowledging that I live and work on the unceded traditional territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Coast Salish people. I'm really excited for this talk. I'm really excited of this group of women we have here. I will kind of give a bit of an overview. In a moment here, they're all going to introduce themselves, and then we'll go through some questions about their unique experiences. And then in the end, we'll open it up to some questions from the audience. You can use the Q&A button to send in any questions you have, and we'll get to those at the end. So I'm gonna stop this share, and we're gonna go full screen here. All right, we should be able to see everybody now. I am gonna start over here on the side. So Michelle, are you able to introduce yourself?
Yes. Again, thank you for having me today. Just a hello to everyone on the call. My name is Michelle Bell. I'm an athletic therapist at Ryerson University. I oversee the men's and women's program at the university as well as women's hockey. I've also spent the last 10 years working with Canada Basketball on both the men's and women's side of the high performance programs. And I also hold I was the founder of the Ontario Basketball Association, the Student Athletic Therapy Placement Scholarship for students who are basically looking to kind of get more hands-on experience in that field. I have a bachelor's degree in biology and in athletic therapy, and currently I'm pursuing my MBA in business sport management.
Wow. I think it's always amazing when we listen to females talk and they tell us about everything they're doing, and it's so amazing. And congratulations on your working on your MBA. We'll move down to Danielle.
Hi all, thanks for the invite. My name's Danielle Dobney. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm of Trinidadian and Canadian descent, and I'm speaking to you today as settler on uninvited guest in the area known as Takaranto, which has been taken by the Anishinaabe Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Huron-Wendat. And it is now home to many First Nation, Inuit, Métis communities. I acknowledge the current treaty holders, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. I, like Michelle, I'm a certified athletic therapist. I also happen to work with Canada Basketball, so it's great to have us both on the call. I'm an assistant professor at York University, and really looking forward to hearing from everyone today, their expertise, and thanks again for the opportunity.
Thank you, and great job in all of those pronunciations. I'm very impressed. Lydia, let's go over to you.
Thanks for having me here today, Amy. I'm actually here up north. I'm not home right now, so I'm on the Dakel Nation, which is just outside of Vanderhoof, BC. Really small town in the middle of BC, so no one really knows about it, but I'm having fun up here. But I'm also an athletic therapist, and I graduated in 2016. Started working right away with the Whitecaps, Vancouver Whitecaps soccer out here in Vancouver. Worked my way up, and I'm now the head athletic therapist for their Girls Elite Super Recs. So it's one of 3 programs in the country that bring in the best youth female soccer players to train them for Canada. So that's kind of during the day. In the evenings, I work for their academy team. So they've got a U14 boys and girls team that I work with. And then my weekends are spent working hockey in a hockey rink. I work for the Delta Hockey Academy mainly with their female prep team. So again, ages 15 to 18 females, and with Team BC hockey. Yeah, really looking forward to hearing all of everyone's experiences. I feel like everyone's got so much to share. So looking forward to it.
Thank you. Is your grandma watching? She
No, I kicked her out. She's talkative.
Sorry, I'm just playing around with the chat here. Dun, dun, dun. I'm going to there. Okay, so the chat should work now. Let's go over to Claire.
First of all, thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this. I'm really excited. My name is Claire Toffelmire, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm actually of German and English and Irish descent, and I grew up on Bay of Quinte Mohawk territory and homeland, which is now known as Kingston, Ontario. As I'm speaking to you today, I am a settler and uninvited guest on the treaty lands of territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit known as Burlington, Ontario. So I am also a certified athletic therapist. I started with my bachelor in kinesiology at UBC, and then went to Sheridan College in Brampton for another bachelor's, and then I did my certification in athletic therapy. I started as a student intern with the Hamilton Tiger Cats, and was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to continue on with them after graduation, and that's where I still work today.
Amazing. Betsy, let's move over to you.
Hello. Hi everyone. I'm very excited to be invited to this because it's kind of something new for me. So my name's Betsy. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm a certified athletic therapist and a strength and conditioning specialist. I'm of Chinese descent. I was born in Hong Kong, and speaking to you guys today, I'm a settler and uninvited guest on the Musqueam territory known as Vancouver, BC. I actually graduated not too long ago in 2017, and kind of did different sports. And Lydia is actually my boss at a certain point because I've worked for her. But mostly I'm in the clinic now, just focusing on my clinical skills. It's just got to a point where I couldn't spread myself and do too many things. I just need to focus on a few things and just get good at something. And then for a long time, I compete competitively in ultimate frisbee, and it's also very interesting going from doing that for a long time and suddenly being a working person. Because in your mind, when you're young, you're like, I have this dream of playing high-level sports, and then suddenly now you're like, okay, I don't know what to do with my life. So I'm still very new in this field, still learning every day, and I'm very excited to be here to learn from other people.
Thank you, Betsy, and I'm so excited to have you here, and we're gonna highlight how amazing you are, so don't you worry. Okay, and Winta.
Thanks, Amy, and thanks again for having me. My name is Winta Desta. I'm a registered physiotherapist. I also act as a basketball coach and a health educator. I currently live in Toronto, and I'm a settler and uninvited guest in the traditional territories of the Mississauga of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, and the Haudenosaunee. I'm not as good of a pronouncer as Danielle. Haudenosaunee and the Wendat peoples. And I'm really excited to be here today. I sort of play a couple of roles. In my day job, I work as a physio and a manager of group programs at Boomerang Health, just north of Toronto. And I also coach at Bill Crothers for their senior boys prep basketball team, where I dabble in coaching and work as a physio for the team as well. And then in the summers, I coach and work as a physio with the Northern Kings A program here in Toronto as well.
Amazing. And no regrets on those pronunciations. I looked at those yesterday for somebody else, and I was like, no, it's not happening. So I commend all of you, your courage for saying them and making your way through them. So thank you. So I think through those introductions, we can all see that all of these women wear so many different hats, and they work so many different roles. And I think part of what we want to pull out today is just how incredible that is, and how they're able to use their knowledge and their skills to function in all these different fields. So Michelle, I'm going to start with you, because I think when we look at your two different sports and the roles you're taking on, I think we all know that basketball and hockey are two very different sports. And so wondering if you can talk to us about how your treatment changes, or how your role changes depending on who you are working with.
Thanks, Amy. Yeah, so working in two different sports, I wouldn't necessarily say treatment changes as it would as the injuries are different for different sports. So in basketball, you would typically see your ankle injuries, your quad contusions, your ligament sprains, whereas in hockey, due to the nature of the sport, we have high impact injuries, the crush injuries, your AC joint sprains, your labral tears, whether it's the hip or the shoulder. And then of course, there's concussions that happen at a number of sports, but specifically in hockey, because the mechanism is to hit or be first to the puck, to beat out your component. So that I would say at the university level, that's where we would see most of our injuries with hockey. It changes between treatments just because, and again, you're dealing with female, male. So again, you're going to change your treatment techniques. But besides that, you're still kind of taking on the role of you're a healthcare provider. So whatever treatment I provide for one, it's the exact same. But each injury also doesn't have the same recipe. Everybody is different. Everyone's body is different, and so you manage to at least learn your own methods, new ways to tackle each athlete. Sorry, and they all have different personalities as well. So it's an amazing environment to work in.
I think it's so interesting how you highlight that you find your own techniques. And I think that's so important, right? Because you've got to find what works for you. And also the acknowledgement that every athlete is different. Lydia, you also work in two fairly contrasting sports. So I'm wondering, how does that work out for you? What does that look like?
I'd say it's a similar answer to Michelle, that the injuries themselves can be quite different. So hockey, I see a lot of more shoulders, concussions, that kind of thing. But in soccer, I see a lot of ankles, a lot of knees. But overall, I'd say there's more similarities and differences, especially because both of them are elite female. So personality types are very similar. A lot of the injuries are actually quite similar as well when it comes to their growth stage. So I do find a lot of similarities, and I've found that doing one has helped the other and vice versa. So although some things differ, and one big thing would be that for soccer, I'm there 24/7 with them. So whenever they're training, playing a game, I'm always there. So it's everything from on the field to their rehab process through a whole ACL to back on the field. But with hockey, it's a little different because I'm not with them throughout their week when they're training. I'm only with them for games on the weekends and when we travel. So things differ there a little bit. But other than that, a lot of similarities, especially with the same gender and same age group.
I think that's such an interesting point about how you come in and out with hockey, because I think that's got to make such an impact in terms of what your treatment looks like. Because if you're not able to be there, you've got to put that trust on either the athlete or the coaches to have that knowledge to make sure it's happening. So
yeah, that it definitely can hinder the follow through for sure when you come back a week later and they've done nothing.
I can say us coaches are not great at staying on top of those things. Becomes an afterthought for sure. Winta, in your different roles, you see a lot of different age groups. So I'm wondering, because you work with pediatrics all the way through, so I'm wondering what the differences you see are.
So, I mean, it depends on what level of activity they're doing. I mean, I'll see infants where we're really just working on gross motor skills. And then I'll see kids who are, maybe playing sports recreationally, up into, elite athletes. So there is quite a difference, as well as kids with varying abilities, some kids with physical or cognitive disabilities as well. So a lot of what I do is sort of figuring out what their needs are, and meeting them where they're at, and then just trying to enhance their performance for whatever it is that they do specifically.
I think, yeah, the fact that you guys you're almost like you're problem solvers. You're constantly attacking every problem and trying to find the solutions depending on the individual. Betsy, you competed as an athlete with all of your AT knowledge. So I'm wondering, did that change your competition? Did that change anything that you personally did?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely changed how I train myself, especially because I played for a span of 10 years. So from my 20s to my 30s, there's a lot of changes happening to your body. And you can't, definitely the recovery part was a bit of a learning curve because, so it used to be you can go hard, train hard, body feels fine. Not so much in the last 5 years. So just that knowledge, making sure managing the load and the recovery is huge. And obviously that carries on to like my practice and how to relate to that and to whatever sport, just to like kind of blend it all together. So it's really nice. I wish I learned all this earlier in life. So some of the stuff I wouldn't have to deal with now, but never too late. Now I'm using that knowledge to help other people. So it's all good.
I'll kind of follow that up because I know you left it out of your bio, but you will hold or held some records for weightlifting. And I wonder, did your weightlifting change with this knowledge, or did the weightlifting happen before? I know you just got back into lifting, but was there a shift there for you, or?
Oh yeah, like before you're just like, just gonna try things out and lift as heavy as possible. Not doing that anymore. Like just gonna see how things are going first and then slowly build rather than trying to chase like a certain timeline. Especially now, I mean, nothing's going on right now, so there's no timeline. So I'm just gonna slowly not hurt myself. So definitely, again, I wish I knew a lot of stuff earlier, and I'm glad that I can share it with other people now just to keep them successful in what they're doing and injury-free.
That's good. We all want to stay injury-free. Important part. Danielle, you're an AT, but you're also a professor. So how does that work? How do those play off of each other?
I think for the most part, it's really interesting to be able to like mesh the two together, to be able to bring things from the work I do with Canada basketball into the classroom, whether that's case studies or little anecdotes. It's really, I think, brings the material to life for students to think of this is a story about an actual person, and trying to brainstorm ways that we can help or augment our learning by talking about real world scenarios. I think that's probably the biggest one for me.
That's fantastic. And I think that's such a valuable learning experience. I know our AT at UEC this year, she used me to have the athletes practice on. She used my body injuries. So it's great to see that like hands-on real life situation translating. One thing that I want to talk about with you guys is kind of the role of being a female as a sport health practitioner and kind of what that looks like. Claire, you work in a very male-dominated field, and I'm wondering, because that hasn't always been the case for you, so I'm wondering kind of what shifts you noticed in kind of yourself or in the way that you approach your treatment that happened as you shifted into that male-dominated field.
I think the biggest thing was just the awareness that I was all of a sudden a minority in terms of being a female in the male environment. I think that I've been so lucky in each experience along my way that I've had strong female role models that have done a lot of hard work for me. And there's no way that I would be where I am today without them. Some of them are on the call and some of them are attendees in the presentation. And I'm just so thankful for them because it's opened up a lot of doors for me. At TICAT specifically, even the head therapist when I began there as a student intern was a female. And so just seeing how kind of she ran her training room and just, creating a training room that was kind of based on respect, no matter what you identified as or anything. You're welcome, you're heard, and you're there to get better. So I think it's important to kind of continue that, treat everyone with respect, work hard, and be the best therapist you can be no matter what your gender is. So I try and kind of continue that in my training room now, just making sure that everyone feels safe, valued, and heard. At the end of the day, a body is a body, and they're experiencing real pain, real emotions, and real feelings, and this all matters and comes into our treatment plans. So as Michelle actually said so well earlier, at the end of the day, we are healthcare practitioners, and each athlete is different, male or female, and our treatment plan is often dictated by the individuals, what they're feeling and how they're moving, as opposed to their gender. But at Ticats, I'm actually so fortunate that I'm very supportive in my role as a female. Well, I guess support as a female in my role. So I've been able to build a very good, personable yet professional rapport with my players, staff, and management. And so I've gotten to the point that it really honestly feels less like I'm the female athletic therapist, and it's more just Claire, the athletic therapist. And that was a pretty cool kind of moment to feel like I don't ever want to say I'd made it, but like I was finally just like, if I said something, I would be heard. And that was a pretty cool moment. So
I'm really happy to hear that, and I love that that idea of creating that safe culture. And I think it really kind of plays off some of the other talks we've had throughout, is like this idea of creating safe space, and I think it's so important. And I think it really plays into kind of the role that you guys have, because you have such a unique connection with the athletes. You have a connection that's so different than coaches or other practitioners. So I think that's fantastic. Winta, you, in one of your roles is you actually coach males. So I'm wondering what that kind of dynamic is like, and kind of how you're able to navigate that.
Amy, you sort of brought up a really good point there, in the sense that us as clinicians and as therapists have a different relationship with the athletes we work with. And, you know, going in as a coach therapist, I'm able to develop a different rapport with players, and a different level of trust, because early on I'm showing them that I care about them, you know, care about their bodies and their injuries, but I also care about them as a person altogether. Not that coaches don't do that, but it's a little bit different in the team dynamics. So then when I'm shifting over into a coaching role and, you know, asking different things of players, you know, they've already built a different trust with me, so they can really respect sort of what I have to say. And that's definitely helped me, being a female coach in boys basketball and boys youth basketball, where there's not very many female coaches, you know, really garner respect with my athletes. And, you know, it translates in terms of how they perform. You know, every now and then where I have to be a head coach, you know, they don't completely drop the ball when I'm when I'm there. So and I've gotten really good feedback from them going forward. So you know, it's been good. I've you know, I think I've fostered respect as well with other coaches as time has gone, and they also listen to me a lot more now in terms of the rehab perspective and side of things. So that's good too.
I admire that you're building that respect, but also part of me, like, there was a part of me that goes, but why do we have to work so hard for it?
I know.
Good for you though, for taking on that role. And I think all of us, as females, we generally understand the need for fostering those relationships. And I think part of what we're trying to get across is that when we do foster those relationships, we can have such a better interaction with our athletes or our coaches and all of those things. And I hope that others take that on. Lydia, you have had a unique experience working with male coaches, coaching female sports, and kind of maybe being their first introduction to female sports, which has maybe changed your role as a therapist. And I was wondering if you can talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, especially in hockey, it's been kind of an ongoing thing where we have had a lot of newer male coaches that have been introduced to coaching females. So they've coached males their whole life and get thrown into a female team. And you can say it's the same all you want, and sure, hockey's hockey, soccer is soccer, but there are differences in personalities and how the girls handle things, especially the youth handle things. So I found over the few years here that I've had to really help both the girls and the coach figure out how to communicate well together, and how to like figure out their differences and how they can work together. Most of the girls have had male coaches before, but they just don't know how to understand what they're expecting from them, and the male coach often doesn't know how to communicate to the females to not intimidate them or insult them, or there's just more feelings involved. So I found a lot of my work, at least, hasn't been so much with the body itself, like musculoskeletal, but a lot with just how they're thinking and in their brain, and has kind of pointed me towards another passion of like sports psychology and just how we communicate and the differences between us and how that works.
I think that's such an interesting point, and I think it really highlights how, as therapists, you guys do take on so many different roles. Like, not only are you treating, you guys are also generally the one that the athlete is telling all their problems to. You get all the emotions, you get the tears, you get the excitement, because, and especially when there's male, if it's a female team with male coaches, they may not be comfortable expressing that to the male, right? And good for you for taking on that role. And I think that's such a challenging thing as females. We take on extra roles because no one else wants to do it, or it becomes, you know, just required of us to get ahead. So good for you.
Thank you.
Danielle, you had an opportunity to work with Team Canada basketball when they went to the Olympics in 2016. And I'm wondering if you can kind of tell us what that experience was like. What was it like going to an Olympic game as a therapist and with that group?
I think firstly, I would just say it's like the most amazing experience. You know, I even to this day, I can just think about what it was like to go to the village, to fly with our team there, to just walk in and see the village for the first time. And it's like its own little world being in the Olympic Village. You know, seeing athletes from every different sport you can imagine as they're moving around the village, some training outside, just seeing different people in different teams kind of doing their thing. And to just see like elite walk racers, like just cruising down the sidewalk, or like to see, you know, the greatest tennis players in the world just like hitting some balls like at the court that's just down the road from where you're living. Like it's incredible the things that you see there. I think from a performance standpoint, we didn't get the result that we wanted, and that was a really tough thing for players and staff. And I think that sticks with me a little bit. And I think, you know, for me, it was an opportunity that I was really hoping I would have at some point in my career. And when it happened, I had this, you know, real feeling of joy and of accomplishment and a real gratitude for every single person who had helped me get there. And truth be told, Michelle Bell is actually the person who got me involved with Canada basketball. So, you know, it's fitting that we're here, and that when I share that story, I always say, you know, she's the person who brought me into Canada basketball. And, you know, I thank her, you know, along with many people who helped me get there.
That's fantastic. And I can imagine just being there is such a great experience. One thing I want to kind of talk about and maybe get your kind of feelings on is you were the only Black female on that coaching staff. And I'm wondering if that changed that experience, or if that allowed you to have a different connection with some of the athletes. I don't know if you can talk about that.
Yeah, at that point I was. I believe I still am at this point. I was kind of like looking at this picture in my background, looking at the staff just to confirm. Yes, I am the only person of color on our staff. I mean, first I'll talk about like the experience for me. And for me, it's actually an environment where I'm around athletes who are like me. It's probably the environment where I see the most mixed race people and interact with them regularly. And one of the just interesting stories is like I had extensions for the first time with the team. And maybe people think like this is crazy, but like I'd never had extensions before. Just for everyone who knows what that is, it's like having hair braided onto your hair. So like it looked like my hair was much longer. And this is like an experience that I felt comfortable having because I had so much support from other Black people, other mixed people that I'm not always around. And when you're doing that for the first time, it's like new and unknown, and you need people that you trust, people who are going to guide you, people who are going to like, no, don't get that, get this. You need to get this hair wrap, and this is what you do with the hair wrap. And like, there's this real sense of community that I felt when, you know, we had someone come to the hotel during training camp, and like 5 or 6 players came into the room and were like, how you doing? Like, are you tender headed? And one of them like pulled on my hair. Right. So like this community of people, for me was like a really special moment to be supported and encouraged on this thing that I was like really interested in, but didn't know who to talk to about it. So that's just like my half of the story of like when I'm around them. And I think, you know, being the only person of color on staff, there are probably conversations that I have with athletes that they don't have with other people. And not that I'm out there like, hey, come talk to me about this. It's just, you know, you feel comfortable to talk about certain things with certain people. And I think that happens a lot in the environment, whether that's with the senior team that I'm with, or sometimes I have the chance to work with Michelle with the cadet team or the junior team. And even Michelle as a person of color who I get to spend time with. And sometimes we room together, and, you know, we have these experiences that I don't necessarily have with other people. So I think, you know, whatever it is that I might bring to the team, like they bring so much to me in terms of creating this feeling of community, this feeling of sisterhood, of, you know, shared knowledge, shared wisdom, shared joy that I think has been really special for me.
Thank you for that story. That's a fantastic story. And I love that it's a two-way connection, and that, you know, you're supporting each other. And I think that really speaks to probably the relationship you've built with those athletes, which is fantastic. Looking kind of at the fact that you guys are all taking on different roles, I want to talk about some of the other initiatives that some of you have done. So, for example, Michelle, you've started a student athletic intern program. Is that correct?
Yes, athletic therapy internship with OBA, Ontario Basketball.
So do you want to tell us about it? What does that consist of? What does it look like?
Yeah, well, even before I jump into that, I'm just going to hit on some of the things that Danielle said, because we do have a bit of a history, but it's been a good history. And, you know, when I had, basically with Canada Basketball, we were asked if there's any individuals who we thought would be great to add to the team. And I had actually been a student therapist at Ryerson, and Danielle was my mentor. So I've always been a person to always say, if you've got good people around you, bring them on. And I think as a community of ATs or health professionals, your ego has to be put aside for the end goal to be met. And so bringing Danielle on, it wasn't even an afterthought. It was just, you have to have good people around you. And so, yeah, no, we have a good history. And the same thing, I learned from her, from my first ice bag to taping. You know, it was Danielle. So, I mean, we can go both ways. So I always consider it a blessing, the people who you have around you, and it's important to surround yourself with great people. So getting back to now, the OBA athletic therapy internship, I wanted to find a way to give back to students in a way that reflected on the people who gave back to me. And I think in life, too often society is a me mentality, and it should be a we if we're all trying to achieve the same goal. And so what I designed the program to be was basically an internship, and it's an internship to give student ATs who are upper level students who, you know, aren't afraid to actually tape ankles or be with the team and take on that leadership role. They have to display that they're capable of doing that. They go through an interview process. Some of them know it, some of them don't. I make them tape my hand or my foot while we're in there. You know, and I don't put that on the interview prep. I just tell them, I'm like, hey, here's a scenario, tape my hand. And, you know, it's to see, like, you have to be okay with being uncomfortable. You're going to be put in situations that aren't always easy, but somehow, some way, you will find a way to finish the task. And so again, I've had some amazing mentors in my life. And so I just thought it was important for younger ATs, I shouldn't even say younger, because you can be of any age and be in this career. So just ATs in general who are coming up in the ranks, an opportunity to work with elite level teams. So I basically also mirror the program as if they were working with the national team, you know, the same expectations. And I always say, you might be here and I'm up here. I will never come down to here, because in real life, you have to always aspire to move up, and you can't be okay with just being where you are. And so, and someone's going to tell you it's not easy, but the ones who actually tell you the truth are the ones that care about you and not just letting you fall by the wayside. And so, yeah, I think it's an amazing opportunity that I was given as a mentor, and I just kind of give back to the community now.
That's fantastic, and it's amazing that you're able to do that, and I think so important. And we'll actually kind of circle back to that, because later I'm going to ask you guys advice for those trying to get into the field and try and find work. So we'll come back to that. I want to talk to Winta about another organization that she runs called MayeHealth. Winta, can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So early on in my physio career, I was approached by a case manager. I was doing some work with MBA clients, and this case manager was like, "Do you speak Tigrinya?" And I was like rattled, because I was like, one, how do you even know that language? And two, I was like, yeah, well, it's not the best, but I could manage. And that's a language that's from Eritrea and North Ethiopia. And they couldn't find a physio for this one client. And I later on had realized that I was the only person who spoke that language in the city and then in the province that could provide care. And it's a pretty big demographic of people in Toronto, the GTA, like upwards of 50,000 people now. And I was like, okay, well, there's no way I could personally treat all of these people. They might not all need physio, but there's something that I can do with the knowledge that I've built as a healthcare provider and in my years of school to help support this community. So I created this website that was sort of like a database for different healthcare information that was accessible in English, Tigrinya, and Arabic, so that the people of that community, if they needed reliable healthcare information, they could seek that out. And then since then, I've, opened it up a little bit more, where we have like some social media, doing some local events and collaborating with other Eritrean groups, both locally and sort of throughout the world. So that's been a really amazing experience, and like a passion project of mine. And since then, I've been able to connect and help out a lot of people in Toronto and abroad. So I'm really happy about and proud about that, for sure.
Yeah, you should, Libby. That's an incredible program, and good for you for recognizing that need and recognizing your ability to do that. That's so amazing. All right, I want to talk about how to find work in this field. So where I want to start, though, is I want to talk to Claire, and I want to talk about kind of, you managed to get right into your position, which I think is rare. So I want to see if you can talk to us kind of about how you were able to get that position and stay in that position right out of school.
Sure. So similar to the internship program that Michelle started with OBA, there's similar ideas with a lot of other, for example, TICATs and a couple other CFL teams as well. And so I was fortunate while I was a student to have the opportunity to start as a student intern in the same kind of program that Michelle started. And I am so thankful for that, because it gave me a safe learning environment to see how professional sports is different than kind of your general population clinics, and learn from other therapists and kind of learn. We're working with athletes from many different backgrounds, many different upbringings, and many different journeys to professional sport. And so being able to kind of hear from them, their experiences with different athletic therapists, and what kind of find my niche of how I fit in a training room and can contribute to the team. And I think that a lot of where I am today is, or I know that a lot of where I am today is because of the student opportunities that I had going through school. And it just so happened that as I was graduating, there was some movement within the staff at TICATS, and an opportunity opened up and it was offered to me, and I just couldn't believe it. Because it was kind of something I always thought I think I kind of want to get into professional sports. And it was because the environment that we have is a lot of it is in-house. We have a lot of chiros and physios, and all of our doctors, specialists, sports med, generalists, everything, they all come together, and it's kind of putting all of our heads together, checking our egos, putting all our heads together and trying to figure out how we can get each athlete back safely as quickly as possible. And I think that was an opportunity I just couldn't turn down. And so it was a huge learning opportunity for me the whole way. And I just kind of continued to learn as much as I could from anyone around me, take every opportunity that was available to me, work hard, and just never being afraid to kind of admit if I didn't know something, if I didn't know the answer to something. My athlete completely is going to trust me more if I say, you know what, I don't know, but I am going to find out for you. And so I think that was really important. Just knowing that it's okay to not always have the answers, because I know I have a great support system with me that I will take care of them. And also just, sorry, I just completely lost my train of thought there for a second. Shoot, well, I'll just leave it there. And if it comes back, it comes back.
I think it's fantastic that you have such a supportive environment, and that there is that collaboration through the different areas, and that you can, it's safe for you to admit that you don't know. And I think that is so important. I think for all of us to be in an environment where it's safe to say, hey, right now I don't know, but I'm going to find out, or we'll find out together. I think that's so important. Yeah. Betsy, I want to come down to you, because you mentioned that you made the decision to kind of work in clinic work so that you could really get focused. And I want to, maybe you can talk to us about that decision.
I mean, I tried doing a bit of both when I first came out, because when I graduated, because I wasn't sure kind of what I was interested in doing. But I quickly realized I can only be divided so much. So it was either, I worked for Lydia for a bit in the winter doing hockey, and then summer it was rugby. But then it started to become I'm kind of just running around and exhausted all the time. So I wasn't getting good at anything. So it was just, I need to divert my energy and just focus on a few things and get good at it before I start experimenting everywhere else. And clinic has been good for me. It's a little bit more stable and less traveling in that sense, but also just learning to work with a different population. I know coming out of school, actually, people think that athletic therapists only work with athletes, but we work with everyday people too. And sometimes we treat normal people that have back and neck pain from work, just from sitting all the time. So a lot of people actually don't know that. So they come into the clinic thinking we're only athlete specialty. But even doing that, it's rewarding in a different way. Because sometimes someone comes in and they're like, I picked up a piece of paper and I strained my back. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't, obviously, I chuckled to myself, but in my head, I'm okay. Let's assess and treat and make the person feel better getting out of the clinic. Just stuff like that. Even working with athletes, everybody's their own individual, and it's always interesting to meet different people and then learning different stories. So I always find, and besides treating the injury, you meet different people and you learn about them, and you kind of have to treat them as a person too, right? Because it's not just remembering, hey, this is, quad strain coming in today or something. You don't identify them by their injury. And as some of the other speakers have already said, you build a good rapport. You create a good, safe place, because a lot of people come in every week and they sometimes talk about some private stuff in their life that they have nowhere else to turn to. And it's just kind of an outlet for them, and they trust you enough to talk to you about it. I think that's very like honored, I feel, because I mean, they can't share it anywhere else maybe in their life. And usually I just listen because I don't have anything to offer. In, like, for example, if they want to talk about their marriage, I'm not married, I cannot offer advice, but I will listen. And maybe that's good enough to help them with you know, just venting and getting something out and moving on in their week. So yeah, so that's kind of what happens in the clinic a lot.
I love it. And I will admit that I go to her clinic, but I go see the chiro. Maybe one day I'm going to come see Betsy instead. I probably should, we'll be honest. With Lydia can probably speak to all my injuries. I should probably go see Betsy instead. I'm going to kind of maybe open it up a little bit now and just say, anyone have specific advice for those that are looking to try and either go into schooling or have finished their schooling and they're looking to get work? Does anyone have some advice they want to offer?
Yeah, I can speak to it a little bit. Because for me, I know for Betsy, it's a little bit fresh in our minds because I haven't done school for that long. For me, like, I got really lucky, kind of like Claire, where I ended up in a student intern position, and then I was an assistant, and then I became the head, and so it just kind of rolled into my job today, and I'm super lucky. But I got the intern position. It wasn't a position that was on the list of things you could apply for. It was something that from home I had volunteered for the organization years back when I was doing my undergrad at SFU and before doing my postgrad. So when I was finishing up, my mom always encouraged me, you know, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. So I think sometimes as women, we don't assert ourselves a little bit and just put ourselves out there a little more. And so she encouraged me to just reach out to them. You have a history with them already, so why not? So I just randomly emailed their head physio and said, I'm looking for an internship to finish out my athletic therapy post-grad. And next thing I knew, he said, perfect, we're looking for someone for our female program. So if you can move back out here in the spring, then come on out. So I got a great mentor. She, like Michelle was saying, and how Michelle helps her students, she made me uncomfortable but safe. I've always felt safe, but I was uncomfortable a lot, and I learned a lot. And if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have been comfortable to take on this position so soon after graduating, I don't think. So like my biggest advice to students, because I had a few of the girls ask because they want to go into some sort of healthcare, athletic therapy, physiotherapy, is just to get as much experience and never stop learning, never stop asking questions, and always ask, because you never know what the answer could be. It's always going to be no if you don't ask. So if you want something, just ask for it and see what happens.
Yes, we as females tend to not ask or not apply or all of those things. So I think that's fantastic advice. Does anyone else have some advice?
Yeah, I would just add, really loved what Lydia was saying there about like just going for it. I think the reality is that there are people like me who get lucky. You meet someone, they work in another organization, and they kind of pull you in and give you that opportunity. Once you go into that opportunity, it's on you to kind of make the most of it. But for the most part, like, I'm lucky that I know Michelle because she was sort of my foot in the door. And there are lots of people who, you know, have that bit of luck where they know someone. What I would say is that my experience of being in organizations like Canada Basketball at a university, it's really common for people already in the network to get those jobs, which makes it really difficult for new people to try and get in there. And I think, you know, we're more aware of how systemically those things happen. You know, I know someone, well, tell them to apply, or I know someone, bring them in, introduce me, etc. So I want to first just acknowledge that that's a real hurdle for people to get into a certain position, get into a certain area. And we can't overlook that. And unfortunately, because of that, it really means that if you don't have that Michelle in your life, you need to do some cold calling. You need to do some cold emailing. You need to, you know, follow someone on Twitter, find somebody on ResearchGate, or, you know, you have to put in a little bit of work to try and find someone to get into their network so that maybe when a chance comes up, they can they can suggest it to you or offer it to you. And I think now I'm at the position where I'm actually starting to get those cold calls, those cold emails from students from, hey, I want to get into the athletic therapy program. Hey, do you need help with your research? And, I look at them a lot differently now. Because at first it might be like, oh, like, why are you, I don't know you. Why are you doing this? But like, it's kind of taken me this long to realize that, not everyone has the Michelle, right? You got to get out there. You got to go on some website and look up someone's name and like, what do you do? And just kind of like take the leap of faith and say like, hey, can I learn from you? Can I come to your training camp? Maybe it's you email Claire and you say like, I'm a student. I didn't get the internship with your team. Do you mind if I just come to a practice? And like all those little things that just require a bit of courage to put yourself out there when you're probably going to get like 95% rejections. I think, try to take a chance, take a risk, try to reach out, even if you don't know them, to try and like get yourself in there. And I think, people more and more are really starting to respect people who are just like, I'm going to go for this. I think it hurts less with an email too.
I can actually speak to that because this whole process of organizing the speaker series was so vulnerable, and sending emails and saying, hey, I'm doing something. Do you want to join me? And there's so much courage that's required to reach out, but I think in the end it pays off. So, yeah. And I think tomorrow, hopefully everyone kind of tunes in. We're going to talk, Alex is talking about unpacking the advancement and kind of how policies keep women down and how we need to change those policies. So also important. Michelle or Winta, do you guys have some advice?
Actually, yes. Thanks for asking. So I will echo everything that Danielle said, but I'll change it. Instead of luck, as someone of faith, I believe your life is blessed. And I also believe that you need to trust the timing of your life. So even when things don't go as planned, give it a time to reflect, to learn from any rejection that you might face, and then find a way to grow off of it. Anytime you get a no, it's an opportunity for growth. And networking is so important. It's hey, is it really that hard to press send? And it sometimes is, but once you press it, you're like, oh, it's so good. It's the best feeling. And so, Danielle can say, I'm lucky to have Michelle. I'm lucky to have, and she's on this right now, Tracy Blake, who connected me with you, Amy. Her and I worked together with Canada Basketball as well. And, she gave my name to you, and then you asked for me to come on, and here I am, So again, trust the timing of your life. Don't burn any bridges, make your connections with people. And at the end of the day, your life will always work out as it's supposed to, or at least guide your way to the path that you actually want to achieve. So
I'm just going to speak to Tracy for a second because a volleyball coach I follow posted her statement, and that's how I found about Tracy, and then this all happened. So I think it's such an amazing thing to see just how the timing works out and how that happens. Winta.
Yeah, I also want to give a shout out to Tracy because she is the best, and I think everyone who knows Tracy's heads are nodding. But she is one of those mentors that pushes you out of your comfort zone early on, even before you made that solid relationship, but you're thankful for it later. But to someone like Tracy, I never knew her personally until somewhat recently, but she was in my network, and we sort of, crossed paths, and then, beautiful things happened out of that. But tapping into the people that whether it be from school, whether it be from your internships, whether it be from like a team that you coached or a camp that you helped out years ago, you can actually start to develop some really good partnerships and some great opportunities for yourself. And then identifying gaps and how you can fill them and how that can grow to be a good opportunity for yourself, but also for a program. So I know, like for myself, youth basketball, if you're not on the high performance side, there isn't very much of a presence from a therapy standpoint. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go in on my coaching hat, but once I'm there, then I'm going to say, okay, well, I can actually do this as well. And then, you know, they're not going to say no because you already have me here. So, you know, those are some examples. And then, you know, to someone like Tasia, who I've known from years ago, who is now an amazing role at Basketball Nova Scotia, who was my captain when I was in my first year playing basketball at Lakehead. You know, keeping that relationship alive, and then, you know, being able to collaborate years down the road on some great projects. You know, just making sure that, you know, that person might not be in the same type of role you envision yourself in, but there might be a way that you guys can have some common ground into what you need going forward.
That is fantastic advice. And I love how you used your coaching hat to kind of just make your way in there. And I think that's so, so fantastic. And I think that's such a interesting thing that us females do. Like we go, oh, by the way, I can also do this and this and this, which is fantastic. I'm going to see, we have no audience questions coming in. I know there's a lot of chat going on. So if there is any audience questions, I highly suggest you send them in. And ladies, if there is anything that you want to talk about, I think let's do it. What do you want to talk about? Any statements, final statements?
Can I say one last thing?
Yes, of course.
Just being the only physio here, and it's a little bit harder on the physio side to get into sport because, you know, as Betsy was mentioning, people who see athletic therapists, they think they can only work with athletes, and sometimes it's sort of the opposite for physio. They think we can only work with like the general population. So, you know, making sure that you're sort of keeping in touch with the different organizations, whether it be, you know, the different sport organizations in your province or club level or whatnot, or where you can sort of find that opportunity for yourself to grow, because you might not get it in school and through an internship. But sort of seeing, whether it be social media, websites, what have you, where those roles might be able to exist for you in the future is important.
That's great advice. And I know I feel like at UBC, we're so lucky because we have a physio clinic and we have physios that come and work with teams. But I think that's such an important point because people do think the opposite, and that physio, you know, is general public versus athlete. So thank you. Other final thoughts? I can see Danielle's thinking. I will just say I am so grateful. I have had so many positive experiences with athletic therapists. I will say one of my almost best friends is one. She would have loved to have been here, but she's actually in clinic right now. And I've been so lucky to have spent time with some sports therapists. I was lucky enough to room with Lydia for a week this year, and she kept me sane. And so I truly admire the work that you guys do. And I think I wanted to really highlight how amazing you guys are. And so thank you for taking the time to be here and to kind of just talking about all of the things that you do and all the hats you wear and just how amazing you really are. So thank you.
Thanks for having us, Amy. I think this whole thing's been great. Not only just this talk, but the whole week, but especially just getting to talk to all of you guys has been fantastic. You don't always get a chance to hear from other people in your profession, so it's been really great to hear everyone's experiences. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah, same. Thank you so much.
I guess my last parting comment would just be, you know, one of the things that I personally find difficult is when you're competing against another team, but you want to have this sense of community with the other therapist. And I know when we travel internationally, there's sort of like this acknowledgement, like, I know you're the therapist for the other team, and you know I'm the therapist or the physio, the doctor, the whatever. And I really am curious about how to like create this sense of community, but like at the same time, I want you to lose, and I want you to lose badly. But like if something bad happens, I'm with you and I'm willing to help, but I want you to lose. So I'm always curious just to hear other people's thoughts, point of view. You know, you go up for a pin exchange or a handshake or whatever, and you know, like I think we both understand we're on the same team, but we're on completely opposite teams. So, just that'd be my last kind of final thought on this topic.
I'm gonna chime in there. We could be the best of friends. As soon as the ball goes up, I ain't your friend anymore. That's just done. But I agree. If something goes down on the court, you know, any type of injury, all that goes up the window, and we become our profession.
Yes, that's amazing. I've witnessed that teamwork, which is fantastic. So, all right. Well, thank you all. Thank you to everyone who has joined us. I love that we had the chat on. We could see all the messages coming in this time. I will highlight that we have 2 more calls tomorrow. In the morning, I am interviewing Vicky Sanahara, who was an Olympian and is now the coach at U of T, which is going to be super exciting. She's also a mom of twin 10-year-olds, so real exciting. And then in the afternoon, we're going to talk about unpacking the advancement of women in sport, which is going to be awesome. So thank you. I hope we'll be in touch again, and I'm so happy to have met all of you. And thank you to everyone who joined us.
Thanks so much, Amy.
Merci
Thanks,
beaucoup.
everybody else.
Thank you. Miigwech.
Thank you.
Thanks.